Tonight on Bridge City News, the National Energy Board ruled today that the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion project should move ahead, but with conditions. Beginning this June, a major motion picture will begin filming in Calgary. We have the details. And a special event is taking place at the Canes game tonight in honor of former Humboldt Bronco Logan Boulay and raising awareness for organ donation. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. The National Energy Board has ruled today that the Trans Mountain Expansion project should be approved. The NEB says the risk is justified. The regulator says, however, the project is still subject to 156 conditions, including 16 new recommendations to protect wildlife. The energy regulator says an increase in tanker traffic resulting from the pipeline would hurt killer whales and increase greenhouse gas emissions. But it says the side effects can be justified in light of the considerable economic benefits of the project. The provincial government has been fighting hard for the Trans Mountain expansion so that Alberta could move more crude oil to ports and from there to lucrative overseas markets. The project would triple the capacity of the existing pipeline between Edmonton and Burnaby, BC. The expansion has been in limbo while the feds attempt to fulfill the Supreme Court's requirements to consult with Indigenous communities. Officials with Resources Minister Amarjeet Sohi say a final decision won't be made until those consultations with affected Indigenous groups are complete. Alberta Premier Rachel Notley said there is more work to do, but today was a good step forward. Health and safety. It's about the bottom line, not just about bad backs. Good health and safety practices do not just protect employees, they also create an environment which cultivates economic success.
The very first thing is just, the human costs of having incidents in a workplace, people getting hurt, and also, everyone on a work site, when an incident occurs where someone gets hurt, there's an effect on people. There's a trauma there. So certainly if you can avoid those kind of incidents, you avoid the trauma, you avoid the actual injuries themselves.
With good health and safety measures, employers say staff can do their work easily and safely, which also boosts morale, increases productivity, and reduces costs. Vaping, is it good, bad, or unclear? Although it is generally accepted that e-cigarettes are less harmful than tobacco, there have been recent studies that call into question the view that they are completely safe.
There's plenty of health evidence around nicotine, and nicotine is one of the most addictive substances on the planet. And it is the fundamental illness that is associated with tobacco dependence and with the resulting illnesses like lung cancer and emphysema and heart disease and lung disease. So nicotine addiction is not to be downplayed. And if you are playing with nicotine, you're going to get burned.
Hagan believes the provincial and federal governments need to do more to protect young people. Action on Smoking and Health is asking governments to enforce restrictions on vape companies. Some of Canada's veterans will receive less support from the government under a new pension plan. Ottawa had promised during the last election to reinstate lifelong disability pensions after many veterans complained the lump sum payment that it replaced was far less generous. Instead, a new plan comes into effect April 1st at a cost of $7 billion less than the previous deal. The new system has local veterans uncertain on how they will be affected.
In my case, since I had already received some compensation for disabilities resulting from my service, in their analysis, they've determined that the conversion would not represent any increase in pension for me.
They're all trying to address the veterans and recognize the veterans' disabilities, but how they integrate back into the community. So with the new Veterans Pension for Life, the numbers won't be the same as the initial because they're wrapping around with a bunch of other services. So it's hard to really at this stage figure out, $7 billion sounds like a lot, but how is that really being addressed and quantified with other services that you didn't normally get with just a cash pension?
Alberta's Transportation Minister says that photo radar enforcement is a cash cow and that it needs to be humanely put down. New rules will take effect in June, prohibiting enforcement in areas where the speed limit suddenly changes or on multi-lane highways. We hit the streets in Lethbridge today to hear from you about the changes to photo radar.
when you have a fine but no results, it just means that anybody that has money can pay a fine as many times they want. When you have something happen to you whether like you're allowed to have 15 demerits. If you go through your 15 demerits, it doesn't matter if you have $1 million or $5. Once your demerits are done, you can't drive anymore.
I live by a school zone and definitely see a lot of speeders, so it's nice to have the photo radar there, protecting our youth and our children, especially the young ones that don't know how to look both ways. But other places where, yeah, you definitely know, just coming off the highway and into municipalities, you always see the photo radars there, and that's not, to me, a safety concern as much. So
if I was to go through a playground zone at 50 kilometers an hour because I missed the sign, I still would have, and if I was to run into a child or anything like that, it wouldn't stop that child from being hurt. So realistically, it's not stopping anything. But if I was being pulled over by a police officer, that would actually stop the accident from happening.
A recent report says there are 27 municipalities using photo radar in Alberta, generating $220 million a year in revenue, while only reducing collisions by about 1.4%. The legacy of Logan Boulay, who was one of the 16 hockey players killed in the Humboldt Broncos bus crash on April 6th, lives on tonight at the NMAC Centre. His parents and siblings will do the ceremonial puck drop. Boulay's desire to donate organs has led to an awareness which inspired more than 100,000 Canadians to do the same. On the ice, the Lethbridge Hurricanes will take on the Medicine Hat Tigers with just 3 points separating them. Ainsley O'Reilly reports on the Highway 3 battle.
All 4 Western Hockey League divisions are exceptionally tight. And as cliche as it sounds, it's anyone's game.
Well, it's just playing hard right now. We want to get better. We still got some games left here, and it's real important for us to finish strong, like I said. So for us, playoff starts now. We have to have a playoff mentality and play the right way.
Before the trade deadline, the Hurricanes looked to strengthen their crease, acquiring goaltender Liam Hughes from the Seattle Thunderbirds. Since Hughes simply walked away from the game of hockey, leaving second-string Carl Tedachuk with the pressure of being their number 1 guy.
He's done a great job. He's been real solid. He's played well in most games he's played. So that's made the transition real easy for us. And our guys like playing for him, and he works hard in practice and kind of relates to how the guys treat him and how hard they want to play for him.
We have so much confidence in Teddy and Tommy, and for those guys being so young and being able to step up at such a crucial time of the year for us is huge. And I think any time that you could say backup goalie from before gets to start now, and with 2 young guys, I think that makes the team like you said, rally a lot more and play a lot harder for them. So I think it's we're as happy as we can, or as happy as can be with them, and they've done a great job so far.
Tedachuk just turned 18, and he tells me that he's played in upwards of 25 playoff games. He also says that experience will help him with the Hurricanes.
If I'm having a good performance, it gives the team confidence and just helps out for the game. So if I do my part and play good, I think it'll help out a lot. I just like a lot of pressure, like if I wasn't going to do good enough, but I just put that behind me and just try to do the best I could. And so far, I think I've done pretty well.
Tedachuk has 15 wins under his belt, and he's looking for that number 16 tonight at the NMAC Centre. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
A little bit of Hollywood will be making its way to Calgary. The head of a union which represents film and stage technicians said Sony Pictures has confirmed that a new Ghostbusters movie will be filmed in the Stampede City. Budget details and how many jobs will be created are not yet known. 4-time Oscar nominee Jason Reitman, who is from Montreal, is set to direct the new installment. His father, Ivan Reitman, directed the original Ghostbusters in 1984 and the sequel in 1989. Filming is expected to begin in late June and should last about 15 weeks. The CFL has awarded the 2020 Grey Cup to Regina. The city last hosted the championship game in 2013 when the hometown Saskatchewan Roughriders beat the Hamilton Ticats 45-28 in their last championship. Hamilton and Montreal also bid on the event. The league will announce that Hamilton will host the Grey Cup in 2021. This will give both Hamilton and Regina an opportunity to showcase their newer stadiums to fans across the country. The updated Canada Food Guide came out recently. Local dietitian Heather Mather says we really should curtail our intake of processed meats since they can potentially cause cancer.
They're really recommending decreasing processed meats. There's a link to cancers like colorectal, colon cancer. So they want people to reduce their intake of processed meats like ham, wieners, sausages. So that got attention on the new guide, which is good because we have a high rate of those cancers here in Canada.
Watch the full interview with dietitian Heather Mather as she discusses what we should and should not be eating coming up in the second half of our show. Another Alberta Party candidate has been banned for failing to file paperwork that detailed expenses during the nomination process. Alberta's Deputy Chief Electoral Officer has confirmed the suspension of Tim Meach from the Livingstone-Macleod riding. Meach has been fined $500 and it cannot run again until February of 2024. Alberta Party leader Stephen Mandel was also suspended for missing the deadline to file his documents. Mandel was in Edmonton court earlier today attempting to challenge his disqualification. Polls can be quite informative, especially leading up to elections. A recent Leger poll asked Canadians across the country who their favorite prime minister was over the past 50 years. Our parliamentary reporter Ray Fillion has the details.
Number one, Stephen Harper. He was the choice of 24% of respondents. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the current prime minister's father, came in second with 22%. Then Jean Chrétien, then Brian Mulroney. Mr. Trudeau is number 5. He was the choice of only 9% of respondents across the country.
We will hear more from Mr. Fillion, including the latest with the SNC-Lavalin scandal rocking the Hill. That's coming up in the second half of our show. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canadians should listen to Canada's top clerk regarding alleged pressure applied to former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould. Trudeau made the comments today during a stop in St. John's, Newfoundland.
I want to begin by saying that the clerk of the Privy Council, Michael Wernick, is an extraordinary public servant who has served this country and continues to serve this country under governments of different political stripes with integrity and brilliance. And he is someone who we need to heed very carefully when he chooses to express himself publicly. And I'm sure everyone is taking a careful look at his words yesterday. We continue to believe that the responsibility of a government is to stand up for jobs and make sure that we're growing the economy in ways that are meaningful to everyone, but we're also very conscious that we need to make sure we are always doing that in ways that respect the rule of law, that preserve the independence of our judiciary, and respect our institutions. And that is what this government has always done.
Meanwhile, on Parliament Hill, Conservative Deputy House Leader Lisa Raitt asked more questions about the SNC-Lavalin affair. Government House Leader Bardish Chagger responded.
Mr. Speaker, there were incredibly troubling admissions made at this morning's Justice Committee, so many that I don't have enough time to go through them all, but we're going to fight to do better and make sure we get this on the record. Mr. Speaker, this morning the Clerk of the Privy Council confirmed that he and the Prime Minister sought to influence the decision of the Attorney General in the matter of bribery and fraud charges against SNC-Lavalin. Can the Prime Minister confirm that this indeed is the case?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, we have always respected the work that committees do. That's exactly why we are the government that increased resources at committee. Members from both sides have been asking for witnesses to appear. Committee is doing that important work. We know that last week the Director of Public Prosecution Service confirmed that prosecutors in every case, quote, exercise their discretion independently and free from any political or partisan consideration. Today, the Clerk of the Privy Council also confirmed, quote, at every opportunity, verbally and in writing, in December, the Prime Minister made it clear that this was a decision for the Minister of Justice.
2, 1, 0. Ignition.
The Falcon 9 Israeli spacecraft blasted toward the moon for the country's first attempted lunar landing following a dramatic nighttime launch by SpaceX. Israel is seeking to become only the 4th country to successfully land on the moon after Russia, the United States, and China. It will take the 4-legged lander nearly 2 months to reach the moon. If all goes well, touchdown will be on April the 11th. It was on this day that the first U.S. President, George Washington, was born. The Miracle on Ice took place in 1980, and pop artist Andy Warhol died. This is Today in History for February the 22nd.
February 22nd, 1732. George Washington, the first President of the United States, is born in what's then the Virginia colony. Washington commanded American forces during the Revolutionary War and led the Founding Fathers in drafting the U.S. Constitution. 2006, insurgents destroy the Golden Dome of one of Iraq's holiest Shiite shrines, the Askaria Mosque in Samarra. The blast sets off a spasm of sectarian violence in Iraq just years after the U.S.-led invasion topples Saddam Hussein from power. 1980, the miracle on ice at the Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York. That's where the American hockey team beats the heavily favored Soviet Union 4-3. ABC announcer Al Michaels.
You've got 10 seconds. The countdown going on right now. Morrow up to Schultz. 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
The U.S. team later claims the gold medal by beating Finland. The Soviets take the silver. And 1987, in New York, pop artist Andy Warhol, known for his renderings of Campbell soup cans, dies at the age of 58. Today in history, February 22nd. Ross Simpson, The Associated Press.
This is the weekend for the Academy Awards, a chance for Hollywood to celebrate the best in film production on Sunday. This year, there will not be a host. A couple of Oscars producers talked about the planned ceremony, including the opening number and the raft of guest presenters.
I think we are going to put on a show which is going to keep moving. There's going to be entertainment all the way through. There's going to be all sorts of things paced out through the show. You're not going to miss it. It's great on shows that have one, and I think the show is going to move along fine.
A new segment we have here on Bridge City News is called the Movie Mill Minute with the owner of the mill, Mr. Len Benning. Len has a line on some good movies you can check out this weekend.
Green Book stars Viggo Mortensen as an Italian-American bouncer who gets the job of touring around an African-American pianist in this Oscar-nominated film.
Do you foresee any issues in working for a black man? You in the Deep South? There's gonna be problems.
Promise me you're gonna write me a letter.
I promise.
It was 1964 that Julie Andrews first came on the scene in Mary Poppins, and now Disney's bringing us Mary Poppins Returns, starring Emily Blunt this time around as the never-aging Mary Poppins.
Mary,
Poppins, you came back.
you seem hardly to have aged at all.
Really? One never discusses a woman's age, Michael.
Well, as you know, Oscar season is upon us. Well, we've got a contest to keep you excited. It's free to enter. It's on our website, www.moviemill.com. Great prizes to be won. Test your knowledge and get some bragging rights. To help in your quest to guess the best, we've got many Oscar-nominated films playing right now, such as The Favorite, Mary Poppins Returns, and Bohemian Rhapsody.
You're a legend, Fred. We're all legends.
You know, not only does the mill have great movies, but amazing popcorn as well. We had some fairly mild temperatures in the city today, a little bit of sunshine. Unfortunately, the mercury will be dropping a little more and the white stuff is on the way as well. Complete weather details and the ski report are coming up. This is what the weather was like in Las Vegas today. They got a rare taste of winter, receiving up to 3 inches of snow. Enough of the white stuff to even build a snowman. Well, we had another mild day, almost reaching 0 today. Tonight, a slight chance of more flurries developing here with a low near -11. Snow and steady at -11 for Saturday. Sunday, the flurries should taper off, but the mercury will drop to -17. Slightly cooler on Monday with a high of only -18. Tuesday, warming up to -11 under a sunny sky. Wednesday, even warmer as we're expecting a high near -2. A low pressure system returns with snow on Thursday and a high of only -10. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is +3 and an average low of -10. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1973 at 17 degrees, and the record low was a chilly -34 in 1957. Sunrise was at 7:29 and sunset at 6:01. Let's have a look at the national temperatures for tomorrow now. Vancouver had a snowfall warning today. Tomorrow, rain and a high near 6 degrees. Showers and 5 is on tap for Victoria. A good chance of flurries, a -14 is expected in Calgary tomorrow. Periods of snow and -15 for Edmonton. Light snow and -13 in Regina on Saturday. Snow and -16 for Saskatoon. Snowy and -7 for Winnipeg. Toronto will be mainly sunny and +2. Ottawa will be partly cloudy and 2 degrees as well. A mixture of sun and cloud and 0 for Montreal tomorrow. In the Maritimes, Fredericton, New Brunswick will be mainly sunny and -2. Halifax, Nova Scotia will have a few clouds and -2. Charlottetown, PEI will have lots of sunshine and -6. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect a partly cloudy day and a high of -12 for tomorrow. The company at the center of the political scandal on Parliament Hill, SNC-Lavalin, slashed its dividend by 65% and reported a fourth quarter loss of $1.6 billion. Shares of the Montreal-based engineering firm fell 3% in trading today. Revenue also dropped to $2.56 billion from $2.92 billion a year ago. Retail sales edged 0.1% lower to $50.4 billion in December. That was a smaller contraction than economists had predicted. Stats Canada is attributing the decline to sales at gas stations moving lower, due in large part to lower prices at the pumps. Excluding gas stations, retail sales increased 0.4%. A European Union official says there is full support for member states to hit back if the U.S. imposes tariffs on cars and car parts. EU Trade Commissioner Cecilia Malmström says EU trade ministers discussed the bloc's trading relationship with Washington during a meeting in Hungary today. She says the EU is preparing a list of what she calls rebalancing measures if the tariffs are levied. So are you thinking about growing corn? There is a manual for that. The Manitoba Growers Association has released an updated guide for growing corn. The manual was reviewed by agronomists, pathologists, and entomologists. It has information on crop rotation, residue management, fertilization, corn row spacing, and nitrogen fertilizer management strategies. The guide is free for association members and can be purchased by others. Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, the National Energy Board has ruled today that the Trans Mountain Expansion Project should be approved. The NAB says the risk is justified. The regulator says, however, the project is still subject to 156 conditions, including 16 new recommendations to protect wildlife. Officials with Resources Minister Amarjeet Sohi say a final decision won't be made until consultations with affected Indigenous groups are complete. Will former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould be allowed to speak in regards to the SNC-Lavalin affair? Our parliamentary reporter Ray Filion gives us his thoughts next. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Streets Alive Mission is hosting the Coldest Night of the Year fundraiser on Saturday, February 23rd from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Evangelical Free Church of Lethbridge. This is an opportunity to explore and bring awareness to the challenges of living on the streets in winter while raising money for charitable partners who serve and engage our homeless community. For more information and to register, visit streetsalive.ca/events. The Paw Society is holding its annual pool tournament and silent auction on Sunday, February 24th at Shots Billiard Club and Lounge, with doors opening at noon. Registration is $25, and players can register up to the day of the tournament. Donations for the silent auction are greatly appreciated. Come on out and support a worthy cause. For more information, call Joan at 403-732-5708 or visit pawsociety.com. Dave McCann and the Firehearts are releasing their new album, Westbound Till Light, on Friday, March 1st at the Empress Theatre in Fort Macleod at 7:30 p.m. Come and hear their collection of songs about interesting North American folklore and one that features Frank Slide. Tickets are $25 and are available at McLeodEmpress.com or by calling 1-800-540-9229. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
A story which has been dominating headlines across the country is the SNC-Lavalin affair. Will former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould finally be allowed to speak? Will it bring down the Trudeau Liberals? Joining me now via Skype from Ottawa is our national parliamentary reporter, Ray Fillion. Ray, what's the latest? Will we finally hear from Jody Wilson-Raybould? I know Canadians want to hear her side of the story.
And she wants to give what she called her truth. That's what she said in the House of Commons on Wednesday afternoon in a very much noticed statement that she made in the House. She wants to give her side of the story, but the problem is, as she mentioned during that same statement in the House of Commons, the principle, which is called the solicitor-client privilege, hasn't been waived, and that's not for her to waive. It's for the Prime Minister or someone in the government. As the former Attorney General for Canada, somebody must give her the green light to speak. Otherwise, she won't be able to say much. And the funny thing is, Justin Trudeau, who held a news conference on Thursday morning on the East Coast, he made it clear he's not in favor of waiving that solicitor-client privilege. He said that could, if he does, it could have a negative impact on some court cases involving SNC-Lavalin. So former Minister Wilson-Raybould is actually set to testify before the House of Commons Justice Committee as early as Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. That's when she might be able to give her side of the story. But the problem is, because of that solicitor-client privilege, we don't know if she's going to be able to say anything. She might be forced to answer every single question by saying, I'm sorry, because of solicitor-client privilege, because of the fact that it hasn't been waived by my former client, the government of Canada, I can't answer that question. So it might turn out to be a very dull exercise if that's the case. Now, on Thursday, you were asking about the latest, Hal. On Thursday afternoon, before that same Justice Committee of the House of Commons, the clerk of the Privy Council, who is the highest-ranking civil servant in the country, Michael Wernick, he gave a very interesting testimony. He basically backed Justin Trudeau's version of events, asserting categorically that there was no inappropriate pressure placed on the shoulders of the former Solicitor General, Jody Wilson-Raybould, with regards to the SNC-Lavalin. He says that there was some pressure on her to do the right thing, but that no one put undue pressure on her. Now, this is the first time that such a high-ranking official backs up Justin Trudeau's version of the event, which, of course, is that no one in the PMO did anything wrong.
So, Ray, as we've discussed here on Bridge City News, Trudeau lost his most trusted advisor in Gerry Butts, a man he's known for over 20 years. Many believe it was Butts who was really helping Trudeau with policy decisions. How much will the Butts resignation really hurt Justin Trudeau?
It could have a very big impact because, as you mentioned, Hal, he wasn't just the Prime Minister's main most trusted advisor. He's also a great friend. The two have known each other since their days at McGill University in Montreal back in the early 1990s. For people who don't know Gerald Butts, he was really the mastermind behind Justin Trudeau's run for the leadership of the Liberal Party of Canada back in 2013. He's also the one who is the mastermind behind their whole campaign strategy in 2015, which is a campaign in which the Liberals, of course, won a majority government, surprising just about anyone in the country. Keep in mind, this is a party that was in third place in the House of Commons when the campaign got underway. They finished first big time. He was also, Gerald Butts, the man who had his fingerprints all over everything the Trudeau government did. Every single policy was crafted almost by Mr. Butts himself. So the impact could be huge. Now, I'm sure he's not going to disappear from Mr. Trudeau's world. The two are probably still talking every day over the phone. I'm sure he's going to find a way to advise the Prime Minister in another capacity. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Gerald Butts back in some other role, perhaps, the man in charge of the next campaign, which is going to happen in just over 6 months. So it's probably not the end of it, but of course he's no longer in Ottawa. He's no longer running things. He was really the man behind the Prime Minister. Some people actually joke that he was actually the real Prime Minister of Canada. So his departure could have a huge impact, but he's probably not gone completely.
Ray, recent polls say the SNC-Lavalin controversy has really cost Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at the polls. His popularity is apparently plummeting. Now, will Canadians remember this when the fall election rolls around?
Well, that remains to be seen because the election is quite a few months away still. But yeah, this is cause for worry for the Prime Minister. A Leger poll that was published on Wednesday, commissioned by the Canadian press, shows people who see Justin Trudeau as the best man for the job of Prime Minister has plummeted in recent months, down 7% since the last time Leger asked the same question, polled Canadians on this question back in November. If an election had taken place last week, according to this poll, 34% of people would have voted for the Liberals, 36% would have supported the Conservatives, and 12% the NDP. Leger says it's the first time since they've been conducting polls since the last federal election that they see the Liberals behind, trailing the Conservatives in voting intentions. Mind you, they're trailing the Conservatives by only 2 points, which is within the margin of error of this poll, which is 2.5%. But another survey conducted in recent days by Ipsos for Global News has shown that the Tories are also 2 points ahead of the Liberals. So it looks like the SNC-Lavalin controversy might be hurting the Liberal brand here.
You know, and I'm wondering too, if Maxime Bernier hadn't broken off from the Tories and formed his own party, maybe some of that support would also be with the Tories right now. So maybe add another 4 or 5 points, even a bigger
Possibly,
lead, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
Ray, let's chat about another poll which talked about who Canadians thought was the best Prime Minister over the last 50 years.
I thought that this one was quite interesting. Leger, the same company that did the poll I was talking about a second ago, they asked Canadians who they feel has been the best Prime Minister in the last 50 years. Number one, Stephen Harper. He was the choice of 24% of respondents. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the current Prime Minister's father, came in second with 22%. Then Jean Chrétien, then Brian Mulroney. Mr. Trudeau is number 5. He was the choice of only 9% of respondents across the country. Here in Ontario, most people picked Pierre Elliott Trudeau as their favorite Prime Minister of the past 50 years. And who do you think it was in Alberta? Stephen Harper, 41%. He was picked by 41% of respondents. Justin Trudeau is only viewed by 5% of Albertans as the best Prime Minister of the last 50 years.
Now, still with politics, the leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier, who we chatted about a few moments ago, he's being sued and he's facing a lawsuit over his party's name. Tell me more about that.
Well, yeah, he's being sued by a businessman from British Columbia over the ownership of the name of his party, the PPC, the People's Party of Canada. The man's name is Satinder Singh Willan, and he says that he filed papers with Elections Canada before Maxime Bernier did last September. So he's basically claiming ownership of the name People's Party of Canada. He says that he's recently asked the Elections Canada to look into it. He's even filed some paperwork asking the Federal Court of Canada to review the matter. So will Maxime Bernier be able to use the PPC as his name, as his party's name? That remains to be seen. So yeah, he's facing a challenge here.
Ray, we chatted about the United We Roll convoy, which rolled through Ottawa recently. Now, what was your sense from the truckers and farmers you chatted with? How upset were they with the federal government, especially when it comes to Bill C-69 and C-68?
Absolutely livid. We were there earlier this week. A colleague of mine went, and she did a bit of a vox pop, and she could sense the anger among people protesting on Parliament Hill. They staged a big protest. It completely blocked the Wellington Street, which is the main street that runs right in front of Parliament Hill. They blocked it for several hours on over 2 days. They also paraded in the streets of Ottawa. They got a lot of coverage here from local media in the nation's capital. They made a lot of noise on Parliament Hill. Unfortunately for them, I would say they didn't get a lot of attention from people inside of Parliament. Almost nobody talked about that during question period and during debates, even in the hallways of Parliament. It got very little traction, and that's because they protested during a week in which almost the entire political class was consumed with the SNC-Lavalin Jody Wilson-Raybould controversy.
Monday will be a very big day for federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, since voters in Burnaby South will be headed to the polls. Is there a chance that Singh could maybe not win that seat?
There's always a chance, obviously, but it looks like the stars are aligned right now in his favor because of the whole controversy that this pipeline project, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, is generating in British Columbia, and particularly in Burnaby South. A lot of people in that riding are against that project. You also have the Liberal candidate who had to resign early in that by-election campaign. There's also the SNC-Lavalin, which is also having an impact on Justin Trudeau's popularity. So if Mr. Singh fails to win when he's got so many things running in his favor in that particular riding, there's no doubt he's going to be kicked to the curb by his party. The NDP will be looking for a new leader. The CBC recently reported that Mr. Singh himself was told as much back in June. He was warned by people, this is not a trial run. If you run for a seat in the House of Commons and you don't win in that by-election, you're out. We're going to be looking for a new leader. So he's got a lot running on that by-election on Monday. It's going to be quite interesting to see what the results are. And this is a riding that the New Democrats won by a narrow margins. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they won that riding in 2015 in the last general election, not by much. So it'll be very interesting to see on Monday night.
Ray, it seems like ever since Jack Layton passed away, the NDP, the orange wave, has kind of died off, you know. Thomas Mulcair, now Jagmeet Singh, I mean, the popularity is almost at an all-time low. What does the NDP party really have to do to turn things around and become more relevant, especially federally?
Well, they need their leader to be in the House of Commons, I think, to be seen on a daily basis on the evening news. They need someone who is good at carrying a message, which has not been one of Mr. Singh's strong suits since he became leader a year and a half ago. He really needs to brush up on his messaging. He needs to be convincing because right now, and the other problem too for the NDP is that you have Mr. Trudeau, who's almost a new Democrat himself. He has shifted his party to the left since he became a Liberal leader a few years ago. And so that's squeezing the NDP out. So they got a fight on their hands. And the other problem also for the NDP is that they're hemorrhaging not just support, but MPs. 2 more MPs from Quebec announced just today, Hal, that they're not going to be running in the next election. And that has something to do, obviously, with the polls, which are so low. The popularity of that party is so low right now. Mr. Singh, if he wins the by-election on Monday night, he's going to have to find a way to turn things around and fast because the election, as you know, is fast approaching.
So, Ray, do you think with Trudeau leaning to the left and taking a lot of those NDP supporters away, a lot of those votes, do you think perhaps that maybe Andrew Scheer can grab some of the centrist votes and, of course, people on the right?
We're going to have to see. There's so many possibilities right now. And you also have the Bloc Québécois, which is becoming once again a political force to be reckoned with in the province of Quebec. And that could be a game changer as well. There's so many possibilities. We just don't know where the chips are going to fall for the next election. It could be very interesting. Justin Trudeau has a lot of challengers right now with so many parties that are, sort of competitive. The Bloc is becoming competitive again. And the NDP, the fact that they're so low, they're actually creating problems for Mr. Mr. Scheer, the leader of the Conservatives, because the Conservatives, they're counting on a strong NDP to divide the vote on the left. And that's clearly not happening right now with such weak polls for the New Democrats.
Yeah, it's very true. Should be interesting to see what happens this fall. Our parliamentary reporter, Ray Fillion, joining me from Ottawa. Thanks again, Ray.
You bet.
An updated Canada Food Guide was released recently, and there have been a few changes since the last edition came out about 12 years ago. Let's talk about what's healthy and what's not so healthy. I'm joined in studio now by Heather Mather. She's a registered dietitian with Alberta Health Services in Lethbridge. Welcome to Bridge City News.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So Heather, let's talk about who decides what gets the thumbs up and what gets the thumbs down when it comes to food in the food guide.
So this revision, it was long overdue. They actually had a lot of stakeholder input, which included the public. So there was quite a long period of time where the public could provide their input, and then professionals, like dietitians like myself, could provide some input, and organizations. And then they had the scientific review committee. So these are people like, they list Dr. Kim Rain. She's from the University of Alberta. We've had her down to Lethbridge to speak. She was on their advisory committee. So they had some top-notch scientists for this revision for the food guide.
Okay, so we've got the food guide right here, but you know what's interesting is I've talked to some beef producers here in Alberta that are really not too happy with the new Canada Food Guide, Heather. They're saying we should get all our protein from the plant-based diet instead of from the beef.
No, the protein includes beef, so they're emphasizing lean, unprocessed meats. So meat is still a good choice and a good healthy choice in your diet, and it is still on the plate.
But I noticed there's not a lot of mention of dairy though as well. There's a little bit of yogurt, but not so much of milk and a lot of cheeses.
Yeah, it got included into the protein group because it's a good source of protein, so it is still a healthy part of your diet. So they're emphasizing, though, lower fat milks to choose from, lower fat yogurt to choose from, instead of higher fat cheeses and things like the ice cream, which Canadians a lot of times will go for. And
that's one of the 4 food groups, isn't it?
No.
Gravy, ice cream, and what? No?
So yeah, I think that's part of, we had a large intake of ice cream and higher fat cheeses, and it leads to heart disease. So they're really emphasizing the lean choices, lower fat, unsweetened. Kefir is a great choice. Unsweetened lower fat milks are great choices. So they are still on the guide.
How about processed meats? How bad are they for us, really?
Well, they're really recommending decreasing processed meats. There's a link to cancers like colorectal, colon cancer. So they want people to reduce their intake of processed meats like ham, wieners, sausages. So that got attention on the new guide, which is good because we have a high rate of those cancers here in Canada. So
well, it's funny here in southwestern Alberta as well. There are a lot of German people, a lot of Austrian people, a lot of Europeans that love their sausage, right? So what do you say to them when they say, we're going to have our sausage here?
Well, don't have them as often. Yeah.
In moderation, like Mom says?
In moderation, yeah. So choose your leaner meats, your fresher meats that aren't salted and processed. Yeah, so choose, not huge portions either. So that's what they're trying to get across too with the food guide. A lot of us Canadians aren't getting enough vegetables and fruits. So they're really emphasizing on this plate to get more vegetables and fruits because about 45% of Canadians aren't getting what they need for vegetables and fruits.
So what are some of the good veggies and fruits we should really focus in on?
Well, what you like too, canned and frozen can be good choices too.
Frozen is fine too?
Yes.
They don't lose the nutritional value when it comes to frozen?
No, frozen actually sometimes if it's picked and harvested right off and processed soon right off the crop, it can be a really good choice. It preserves the nutrients, the freezing preserves the nutrients, so sometimes it can be a better choice than some of the fresh stuff depending on how long the fresh has been sitting there.
How about somebody's looking at maybe going on a diet, should stay away from maybe bananas, high in sugar?
Bananas are a great choice. No, they are on the guide.
Stick with bananas?
I think this one, it's interesting to me. I think they try to choose more Canadian type foods when you look at the guide, when you look at the new picture. A lot of those foods are grown in Canada. So that seems to be a bit of an emphasis there too, trying to get closer to home.
What about fruit juices? A lot of times we give kids those little packs to take to school. And I remember my doctors telling me, be careful of that because they're very high in sugar. You know, never mind so much the sodas, the pops, but the fruit juices as well.
Yeah, that's the difference with this guide. They took fruit juice off because people were consuming too much fruit juice. In Alberta, we have our Alberta Nutrition Guidelines, and we recommend no more than half a cup of juice, unsweetened juice, but it is a better choice to choose the whole fruit as opposed to the juice. You're getting the benefits of the fiber when you're choosing the whole fruit, so the emphasis is choosing whole.
So what are the concerns then, Heather? Would they be maybe type 2 diabetes?
The research is showing more for dental decay, and we do have a lot of children that do have dental decay. Some children need surgery because of their dental decay, so that is a concern. So that's one of the factors why they took juice off.
So let's say I'm a parent with a young child, sending them to elementary school, maybe they're grade 1 or grade 2. What should be some of the essentials that I should pack in their lunch each day?
Well, you know, have the child involved. And this is what's nice about the new guide. It's very interactive. They have videos. There's actually a little student, a student doing his own lunch. So he's packing his own lunch. Get kids involved. And this is what's nice about the new guide too. They're really emphasizing getting the whole family involved and teaching young children how to cook. We're finding a lot of Canadians they've lost that skill of cooking, and they're relying on these processed foods. A lot of Canadians, about 30%, are eating out and not cooking at home, and they really want to bring people back to the table. There's benefits for nutrition when you cook your own meals and eat around the table.
And communication too, right?
There's benefits beyond nutrition when you sit around the table and have conversations with people and eat together. So it's really nice that they've emphasized this on the new guide.
Now, wouldn't you save money at the same time as well, as opposed to going out to eat every day, right?
Yeah, it depends on the ingredients, but yes,
Right.
you probably should be able to save some money too.
Although with fast food, a lot of people say, you know what, like a lot of students I talk to at college, university, they say, I can buy a fast food meal for $5, whereas I'm going out shopping. I can't afford to go to the grocery store all the time.
It depends on what you're buying and you know, and what you're choosing. Fast food can be expensive too when you're like feeding a family of 4. And the quality of the food sometimes, it depends on what you're buying too. You may not have as high a quality and the choices. So it all depends.
Now, what about alcohol? Should we stay clear from alcohol altogether? Or some people say, oh, a little wine is fine. It's good for the blood, good for the circulation. A lot of my friends will say, well, beer is also nice too, especially those who grew up in a European household. What are your thoughts when it comes? Is booze bad news?
Well, it's nice that they've actually featured this on the new guide. That's another difference. We didn't see that on the old guide. On this guide, they are recommending to watch your alcohol intake because that, again, is an issue in Canada. It's one of it's a reason for a higher global burden of disease for Canadians. It can increase weight. You know, there's a lot of...
It's high sugar too, isn't it?
Yeah, there can be a lot of nutrients in alcohol, and it can cause cancers too, like your throat kind of cancers, your liver cancer, of course, your pancreas. So there's a lot of health risks with alcohol. So again, it's good that they put that on the guide and to draw more attention to it because it probably wasn't receiving the attention that it needed.
You know, everyone says water's the best. You know, we're made up of what, 75, 80% water in our bodies. Drink water. But Heather, water gets so boring. All the time, water, water. I mean, it's nice. It flushes out your system. It's good. I know. But how can we dress it up a little, make it a little snazzier and more enjoyable?
It's free. You don't even have to pay. Look at all the money you could save by just hydrating.
Well, it's not free. I mean, I pay the city, you know, for my water.
Yeah, well, it's pretty cheap. It's 0 calories.
How about put a lemon in it? Would that maybe?
Yes, for sure. And
freshen it
you know,
up?
people have those fruit-infused waters. You can buy special containers, water bottle containers, to have your fruit to give it some flavor. If you like some flavor in your water, that's a great tip.
And what's interesting too is that the city water actually goes through more stringent controls than the bottled water that you're buying. So it's actually safer to drink the city water than what you're getting from who knows where when it comes to the bottled water.
Yeah, and I understand we got some upgrades to the city water treatment plant too, which is great news.
How about a spot of tea and maybe some coffee?
Yeah,
in
so
moderation?
They have that actually on the guide, that can be a healthy choice. Of course, caffeine, you want to watch caffeine intake, and that's why I brought my little cup of coffee. So no more than 400 milligrams for adults.
Show that for our viewers at home, so you can have a look here.
So,
don't spill. Oh, it's not going to spill, so no problem.
That cup could have just over probably about 125 milligrams of caffeine. So not huge amounts of coffee, and tea has caffeine too. So they can be a healthy choice, but we just don't want to have them sweetened and loaded with creams, high-fat milks, which a lot of our coffees now have. So you notice mine's just plain and black.
Yeah, but that's no fun. Come on.
So control how much
The double-double,
that
right?
you put in there.
Okay, I understand. Well, it's funny too because it's interesting when I go out to some restaurants, I have an iced tea, especially when I go down to the States. It's literally an iced tea, unsweetened, right? As opposed to the sweetened that I'm used to up here.
In Canada, it is different, yeah.
So it's just the danger of taking in too much sugar? Is that what the problem is?
Well, a lot of our coffee drinks now, they're like specialty coffee drinks. We can get huge amounts of sugar and calories from it, so it can be an issue. And it's easy to drink too much of them too, and they're large portion sizes. With a lot of our beverages now too, you get these meal deals or you go to the movie theaters and large amounts of sugar, which it's not good for our waistline, it's not good for our teeth.
What about the popcorn? I'm a huge popcorn fan. I'm going to a movie. I can't sit there and watch a movie without popcorn. I don't know how some people do it. It's possible. Is it okay to have my popcorn?
I don't want to be Debbie Downer here, but yeah,
watch your... Or Tommy Texter or Susie C. Kicker. Oh no, that's in the movie, but okay.
Yeah, so, adding your own seasoning. Actually, Alberta Health Services, we have got a recipe for making a healthier popcorn to season it.
But that's not allowed. You can't sneak that into the movie theater. Come on.
Sometimes I do.
So, whoa, did we get that on? Okay, we'll talk. What about pastas? I have a lot of, again, European friends, and they love their lasagna, they love the linguine, the fettuccine, alfredo. What about the pastas?
Well, trying to choose whole grain. And that's what's nice about the new food guide too, the visual too. It's brown rice, wild rice, whole grain pasta.
So white rice is bad?
Well, they're really focusing on trying to get those whole grain products. So choosing a whole grain pasta. And you can see it in the markets. I think consumers are demanding that more. And then using like your tomatoes on top instead of your cream sauces would be better choices for your pasta. But pasta can be a great choice. But then you also see with the plate too, it doesn't take up all of your plate. Half of your plate should be vegetables and fruits, so trying to plan your meal that way. They've tried to simplify it for Canadians too, because I think all those portion sizes and serving sizes, they were too confusing. A lot of people weren't following the old guide, so I think their hope is to make it easier for consumers to be able to follow it.
So to lose weight, should we stay away from everything that's white, the white rice, the white bread?
Well, I mean, I don't want to.
Like you said?
Yeah, whole grain. Try to make whole grain choices as much as possible. Like sometimes if you're eating out, it's not a choice, but I think as consumers too ask for that choice, and the more that they hear that consumers want it, they will change their menus too. And we're seeing more restaurants serving brown rice as an option. I'm seeing it more. I think we're seeing a trend here where Canadians want to eat healthier, which is nice.
I'm a big fan of rice vermicelli. Oh, that is so good. Getting so hungry here.
You love your food, don't you?
I do love my foods, right? Now, speaking of which, I like to cook as well once in a while. And what kind of cooking oils should I use and maybe avoid?
So again, on this guide, they're really emphasizing choosing healthier types of fats. So your unsaturated fats, and reducing your saturated fats. So
Rapeseed oil, is that okay?
Yeah, so things like the avocados are great. Your olive oils are good choices, and canola oil. Those kinds of oils are better to be choosing than a saturated fat. So reducing things like they emphasize like coconut milk, coconut oil. I know that's really popular. Palm oil, and your butters too. They're saturated fats, and they lead to a higher rate of heart disease and stroke. So, and we still have high rates in Canada. So, having more of your fish. Again, this guide still recommends the 2 servings of fish a week, which will help with heart disease too.
It's interesting though, Heather. I talked to some nutritionists that say have butter, avoid margarine. Margarine is man-made, where butter is natural.
Oh, well,
so
they shouldn't be saying that.
What, really? Oh,
no,
my goodness.
But
I should talk to them.
Yeah, I think though, some people really do like butter. So if you do really reduce the amount that you use, that's sort of like
so
some
like Mom
people,
says, again, in moderation?
But yeah, a soft margarine is a better choice than a butter, heart health-wise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now what about desserts and snacks? What should we definitely avoid, and what's okay to have once in a while?
But it's good to give yourself permission. I think a treat, yeah, because I think, you know, psychologically, if you deny yourself something that you want, psychologically it makes you want it more. So,
chocolate.
Yeah, enjoy those things. Make sure it's something you really enjoy. Don't, you know, waste your calories, and savor it and have it on occasion. So, hey, you know, if you have a birthday, you need your birthday cake. You know, that's.
What's your favorite pie?
You know,
Pumpkin?
my favorite,
Yeah, what's
because
your favorite?
I'm a real dietitian, I like angel food cake with strawberries.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty healthy.
But in moderation, right?
Yeah, I still don't eat the whole cake. Yeah.
Now, what about for seniors who are really concerned about their diets as well and what they may be prohibited from having? What are your recommendations for seniors?
Well, if people are on a special diet, they probably should be seeing a health professional and to see a dietitian. A lot of people don't realize you can see a dietitian for free too. Here within Alberta Health Services, Alberta Healthy Living, you can make an appointment to see a dietitian for free. And then HealthLink too, if people want to talk to a dietitian, they can call 811 and ask for a dietitian to speak to them about any kind of nutrition concerns they might have. So Alberta Health Services has the HealthLink dietitian to talk to too, so 811 is another option.
Have you received much pushback from parents or maybe other special interest groups or who are saying, you know, you really didn't talk about our food products as much as you should have in the New Canada Food Guide?
Yeah, I think there's always, you know, somebody will always have something that they wanted on there, and they will update it again, and, you know, guideline.
12 years from now, or do we have
Well,
to
I
wait
don't
that
know. I don't know. I'm not in control of that. That's not my
Right.
decision. But yeah, they try to keep up with the trends too. And I think, you know, you can see Canada is a melting pot. We're known as a melting pot. We're getting a lot of different cultures here, and they've always tried to capture that in the food guide, the various cultures too. So this guide and the Indigenous population too. We're going to have an update on that guide. So they always take that into account as well.
That's wonderful. Heather Mather, registered dietitian with Alberta Health Services here in Lethbridge. Thanks so much for joining me today on Bridge City News.
Thanks for having me.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, eat well, and have a great night.